and take position. It's ready today. Looking good. You're looking very elegant.
Yeah, wow.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And it's actually a pleasure.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. And it's actually great to have you guys here, fellow Humphrey, and of course, just to hear a little bit about what is happening in Liberia as a country that got caught up in the throes of war for like 14 years, and in 2003, we started to experience this change in what has been happening in terms of the atrocities in my country, Liberia. So basically, I'm talking about the role of UNMIL Radio, that is the United Nations Radio. UNMIL is the United Nations mission in Liberia, and the radio is an offshoot of that mission, especially from the public information section aspect, because the UN mission is divided into different segments. You got human rights, you got gender, you got different areas, and this is public information. And UNMIL Radio happens to be a unit of the public information section. So we're looking at the role of UNMIL Radio in the peace consolidation process of Liberia. And of course, you know me, that's my name. 2013, 2014 at the University of Maryland here, College Park. Well, you cannot talk about what UNMIL is doing except you know what basically where UNMIL is operating from. And I come from Liberia. When you talk about in terms of the square miles, how much space do we have? We cover an area of 43,000 square miles. Well, I'm hoping we still have that with all the sea erosion and everything. I'm hoping we still have that. But it might be reduced a little bit. In terms of our population size, the last census was conducted in 2008, and that put us to 3.5 million. So we're just like a drop in the bucket as compared to Zimbabwe, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all those places. Our capital city is Monrovia. It is named after President James Monroe, who's the 5th president of the United States. We have a president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She's Africa's first female president. You see that. Our currency, we use Liberian dollars. Of course, we have the dual currency. We use the US dollars as a legal tender. It's also the Liberian dollars as a legal tender. We have 15 counties. If you say Montgomery County, 16 tribes, and of course our staple food is rice. The largest tribe, of course, is the Pella tribe, and that's where I come from. This is a map of Liberia. You see us here. On the west, we border with Sierra Leone. On the north, we with on the east, actually, we are with Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire. The north with Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire with the east, and of course on the south is the Atlantic Ocean.
Does your state print American dollars?
Nope.
You said you use it.
Yeah, but we don't print it. We don't print it, but we use it as legal tender. It's been like centuries. So it's not just there. And you get to know the reason why. The official language we speak is English, although we have our local languages. Natural resources, well, we have iron ore, we have timber, we have gold, we have diamonds, precious stones, and of late we got oil. And then we have rubber, the plastic plantations company, very multilateral plantation, and other sources of revenue for us. It's like the maritime. But I think maritime has its own story about, ship registry under the Liberian flag. Most of the flags are flying most of the ships that are flying Liberian flags, if you do the math and really check, most of them are not registered. And so it's a problem I think the government is grappling with. But I think some way, somehow they're trying to handle that. Maritime brings in a lot of revenue in terms of your contribution to the island. Here is the seal and the flag of Liberia. On the seal, you will see the love of liberty brought us here. And that would be like, most of the debate back home is like, this is from the perspective of the settlers. The love of liberty brought us here. Republic of Liberia. So there is a huge debate going on right now back home about how can you say the love of liberty brought us here? You may as well be saying the love of liberty met us here. Because people were residing here. So there is a debate going on, and in fact, there was a group that actually petitioned and said that they were, asking government to take consideration in terms of how this should be done. So again, if they pick it up, well, we'll see how far that goes. But there's a little bit of a controversy there. With the flag, of course, you can see it has like 11 stripes, 6 red, and 5 white. White there for purity. The red there for valor. And of course, we see 1 star in the blue representing one nation. The only difference here is that with the United States, it has like so many stars, but we only have 1. And then you will see some of the things, looking at, for example, this flag here is just, almost what the United States have. Because most of our system is kind of like patterned after American system. Take it or leave it. That's how we operate. Even the jurisprudence, that's the same thing. So you will see a lot of similarities when it comes to it. But again, the whole thing is about, do we actually apply in terms of the law and stuff like that, so that you see the difference. Just a little bit of history from 1821. Again, the controversy still continues. Liberia was established by citizens of the United States as a colony for former African American slaves and their free black descendants. So you will find out that those who are in leadership actually have been the African Americans since this time, and that regime got interrupted in 1980. We had the coup, and President Willow House was assassinated. So that's kind of like brought up also to African American who, I would say temporarily, because again, President Sirleaf is back, and people are like, okay, she tries to say she's native, but a lot of majority of the people perceive African, or you might want to term the other way around, American Liberians. Usually, that's how we call them, either American Liberians or the Congo people. C-O-N-G. So if you hear a Liberian talk about the Congo, it's actually referring to it.
So what was Liberia?
What was Liberia?
I mean, there were people there, right?
Yes, the natives.
So who owned that part of the land?
Which one?
Okay, so was the land owned by the British?
No,
the territory?
it was the natives. It was the natives who were in the country. But it's like,
no, but I mean, like, it was during the colonial period, right? So who owned?
21.
we're talking about 1821. Even long before this time, there were the natives existing in Liberia. You might say not much visibility might have been brought to it because it was like not much consideration was given to it, but these things were kind of highlighted when the African American slaves came on the scene. So it's like somebody saying.
So Sierra Leone, the territory of Sierra Leone,
By the British.
By the British.
But was nobody.
You mean Sierra Leone?
No, I'm not talking about Sierra Leone, I'm talking about Liberia.
So in
Sierra Leone, it was the British people.
The British that
Yeah.
control that.
Yes.
So they gave the territory to America.
Who? The Sierra Leone?
The British.
It was colonized by the
It
British.
was colonized by the British. Sierra Leone.
Yeah, but when Monroe, the president, decided that the African American slaves would come here and be colonized and would put up here, that's what I'm reading from it. At that moment in time, the
These
British
were-
and the American government had some sort of a
These African Americans were slaves living in America here on plantations.
Yeah, that's correct.
And when the Americans somehow just got tired of them, they needed somewhere to dump them. That's what I'm going to say. So first of all, they had a visit to Shepherd Island, which was in Sierra Leone. And in Shepherd Island, most of the things they discovered were like they had a lot of mosquitoes. It was killing most of this. So they had to find another way to go. And that's how come they went to Providence Island in Mongolia. That's where they dumped coal. And they found out the climate was okay, and they were living there. Okay? But in terms of who was in charge of Liberia, whether it was a colony or colonized by any other state before Americans came in, no. Usually people will say, oh, that Liberia is like a colony of the United States. And this is what we're seeing here. But in terms of who was in charge in Liberia before the Americans came, it was just the natives.
How did the natives view these African Americans coming to take over their land?
As imposters.
And was there a battle?
Oh, yeah. See? Like here you will see the settlers. This is our first president, Joseph Jenkins Roberts, first president in 1847. Now you see a settlers route. The American Liberian settlers in 1878. When they came, they organized their political party, and they called it the 2-week party, and that was like a one-party state. And that stayed there for a long time before, let's say, in 1980, actually, when the coup came, before we started talking about, hearing about multi-party system. But even before then, there were these uprisings about, people championing the cause for a multi-party state. And you could see something like a semblance of that, but it was not in actual effect until after the 1980s, because it was like predominantly the True Party. That was, and of course, this party it didn't permit any organized political opposition. So until 1980, you found out that American Liberians found themselves into their positions of authority.
What's the population breakup in percentage for the settlers who came to and the group that particular?
I mean, the time when they came,
Maybe you have.
no, I wouldn't remember that now, but they were much smaller. It was a smaller group, and it still is a smaller group in terms of
3.5 million.
we're 3.5 million, so it's like it might not even be the 5.5 really, because it's like small but very powerful.
50%. So how are they able to organize parts? So did they come in with money? Did they come with guns? How are they able to?
They had a lot of support when they came in this way, because when the settlers came, actually was by the American Colonization Society. It was like a non-profit group that actually career that traveled for them to go, and they always had like trade relations, for example, like with the natives. Sometimes the natives want things like salt, like tobacco, and stuff like that.
So they were trading.
Yeah, and they would trade,
And one last question before. This is the second way. Was the United States keeping the cantonment or its own forces in the Liberian?
Cantonment? Like a soldier?
Yeah.
Like soldier? No.
They were.
No.
So how did it defend itself from outside? From the war, from being followed by the British?
Usually, if with the natives, the only thing they'll be fighting would be clubs, machetes, if they can find it. And they have a way of, they got a way of fixing their own native guns, whatever that is. But it was not like they could stand up to any stiff resistance to,
It was just the US gained its sovereignty over that as well. So it was its territory.
yeah. Then you see, this is our first president, first female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She took power in 2006, and she's poised to remain there up to 2017.
What's the term for presidential?
It is
In a year?
6.
it is Liberia. When did Liberia become a country and not a territory for the United States?
1847, formally you say when we kind of like got independence. It was say from
1847 was when.
yes, like American. That's why you start counting. That's why you start counting 1847. Before then, okay, it existed as a country. The people were there, but
That's all.
formally 1847. And here this guy in 2003, when all of these different negotiations went on in Ghana with the different peacekeeping teams actually meeting to chat.
Yeah. So how president is selected? Is it selected to general election going to vote to the
General
masses?
election.
Or is it the parliament who selects?
General election. General election. I mean, when it comes to the power structure back home, we have the president, we have the vice president, and the speaker. The president is not there. The vice president succeeds him or her. And if there is no way both of them are around, the speaker of the house takes over. So that is how the power structure looks like. So during the interim period, like before 2003, there were several interim administrations because we had all these different warring parties fighting. You had the GERD, you had the Mobile, you had the LPC, all of the Liberia, something parties, the Liberation. So all of them had like separate interests. It was like before you talk about somebody, one party has to take control, and of course the largest group was the one led by Charles Taylor, the MPFL. So as a matter of all of these different factions were saying we need to have a stake in what happens when it comes to power control. Whoever is there, we need to have a representative there. So they had like, if I'm not mistaken, about four interim arrangements headed by like neutral people. You say, okay, there's a neutral person who's heading this interim arrangement, and along the line with membership are all members of factions that fought in the. So until 2003, that was the kind of structure that existed. Even in this 2003 arrangement, you still found some of the factions that represented here, because by then you didn't have a democratically elected government at the time. And you would say like, oh, it's pure and democratic elections. So this was the guy who took the helm of control in 2003 up to 2006 in January, when President Sirleaf took over, because the inauguration is in January. So she took over before he stepped down. He's dead now. He died, I think the funeral should be that next week. He died just 2 weeks.
Of natural causes?
Yeah. Not just 65, so he was relatively young. Yeah. So the UN mission in Liberia, in 2003, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 1509, and that resolution established the UN mission in Liberia.
But I feel that you haven't given us enough background. That's why.
Which one?
Why was the UN Security Council resolution adopted for that area? Why?
If you ask the question, and listen, I can explain. Like I said.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I said you haven't given us background. So can you give us the background? Why?
Masimba,
is nothing.
I said
I mean, you guys go
2003.
together.
In 2003, the UN Security Council, I'm saying, adopted a resolution 1509. And this resolution came about when the international community had discovered that there was no way Liberia was going to be at peace with itself, especially with all of these different inter-party struggles. So there was a meeting adopted, there was a meeting established in Accra in 2003. And it was during that meeting that the women got together and actually locked up all of these heads of warring parties and told them, you have to come to a resolution before we leave from here. And the women were like kind of adamant, and they said, it doesn't matter what happens, even if you kill us, we will make sure that there's a solution reached there, because our children are dying, our families are dying, most of our people are displaced. There is no way we're going to continue with this. So you find out that the Accra Peace Agreement, the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement, actually adopted a peacekeeping model, a peace model that says, we are appealing to the United Nations, you have to come and do something, because at the end of the day, this is what is happening. We have found out that among ourselves, we cannot solve the problem. So this interim arrangement was made for the guy who, the slide before, Judy Bryant. There was an election and everything, and that's when they came up with a chairman, the person to head the interim arrangement before the UN resolution came into force. And that arrangement was in the period of 3 years. A peacekeeping force had to come, but it should be preceded by a West African team, a peacekeeping team of West Africans, Nigerians, of course we had Guineans coming, we had Senegalese who came. So a lot of those African countries sending troops during that period.
So, I'm not trying to, okay, until 1980, you say until 1980, the American Liberia was in that area. It started breaking up, right? And then is that when Samodo came in power?
1980. That was in 1980.
Samodo came in power.
Yeah.
How long was he in power?
10 years up to 1990.
So 10 years, and then he got assassinated.
Ah, well, I wouldn't want to say assassinated anyway, but he got killed somewhere somehow.
He got killed, and then
Because there was war,
then,
so you get the assassination.
Well, I mean, I remember like reading that he was cutting to pieces or something.
Oh, yeah, but you know, people are fighting. This is war. This one is not like Toba where people went into the mansion and assassinated the guy. No, this guy knew there was war. He knew because, in fact, before that time, there was all this tribal. The whole thing had taken a shift. It had taken a tribal shift with the Kran tribe, and of course, then you have
What's the tribe you're from?
the tribe that Samodo comes from is the Kran tribe. I come from the Pella tribe. That's not a problem. The other tribe that Samodo relations or tribesmen had a problem with were those from the east in Nimba, the Mano and the Gios. Got me? The Manos and the Gios. Those two tribes were at variance with the Kran tribe. So you will find out that even those who are heading, like the Prince Johnson, who was a breakaway fashion from Charles Taylor, and he formed his INPFL, Independent National Patriotic Front, whatever that is. He was from Nimba County. Originally, he's the son of the soil of Nimba. So for him, was forming a part of the liberation struggle in his own imagination or terms to go and set his people free. So that was it. And he was the one, it was his team that actually killed someone.
So, okay, so we're in 1990 now.
Yes, 1990.
1990, so Charles Taylor comes into power.
97.
So what was there between 1990
Between 1990 and 1997? They were fighting during the war. You talking about leadership? During 1990 up to 1997, we had all these different interim arrangements that I told you. One was started by a university professor, Dr. Amos Sawyer. He started the first one, the IGNU, Interim Government of National Unity. He was in it for 4 years. And then afterwards, we started having all these different controversies about, oh, I want to be part of it, I want to be there. One man is eating one, everything was about, you know, what you get. So these different factions had to have their voices represented at the table because it was like, okay, you're fighting for a piece of pie, you want to divide something. So that is what all it was, and that's what I saw. Like struggle for power and just getting things done.
Eva, I'm trying just to understand what you're talking about Liberia in America, as long as you had historical relationship to that war period. How were the United States involved?
I would say what was perceived largely was the United States like actually playing a sit and watch game to see what happens. But then when it got to the point where it had actually gotten, because at some point in time, there were some Marines that actually came in. And those Marines, they were just like positioned at the U.S. Embassy premises and they didn't go anywhere else. And then you'll find out that what actually made it even worse when the Alert forces started shooting all of these, how do you call it, yeah, missiles and things, yes. And then right in front of the embassy, there is another part of it, now it's expanded, where they call it the gray zone. You have people seeking refuge there. And part of this stuff actually dropped there and killed people. So you saw people just pulling the bodies in front of the American embassy and people crying and saying, U.S. government, you have to do something. Because at one point in time, the United States President George W. Bush said it was a Liberian problem and they needed to do it. But when it got to the level where it was like, no, we cannot operate in isolation because we have this alliance and we've been in partnership for a long time. So there's no way you're going to leave us alone because by ourselves depends on the problem.
Yeah, another question probably related to that is we see Samuel Doe who's killed, we see Johnson who's coming, we see Taylor who's coming. And then after that, after the kind of revolution, we see the movement coming and we know that she was educated in the United States of America, etc. And we see also this movement of women, I mean, in the negotiation with Accra. What is the logic? Is it any support from the United States, or do we see any cause and effect logic between the women's movement and, I mean, sort of being elected?
Well, I wouldn't want to say if there was any external influence from the United States government. Probably that I don't know. Well, you never know what happens. I think the women's movement coming together actually gave hope that Liberia was desperate for change, and the women were like all of those who are perpetrating the violence. So we think we need a change. We need a change in the face of the woman because we think that a woman is much more compassionate, and we think that when we have a woman there, we're not going to have all this problem with these guys shooting themselves. Because it's like, okay, maybe a man is trying to look for money, pilot up and maybe fighting his drugs or something like that. But a woman should always be thinking some way, some other way, other than trying to, enrich herself.
I'm sorry to put it in the question. Who is promoting her? Where is she coming from?
Well, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf has been in Liberian politics for a long time. She worked with the United Nations. She worked with, I'm not so sure what the World Bank, but she worked with the UN, the United Nations, especially for Africa. So she's somebody who has her own influence when it comes to, and of course, going to school with President George Bush. Obviously, that's immense, the relationship is incredible. So, somewhere, somehow, I'm sure something must have been happening underneath there, but in terms of to say, okay, you're standing and openly, declaring your support and say, this is the candidate we want. That's not what I've seen. I haven't seen that. But I think the women themselves actually sent out a signal. And when Ellen, who has been in the struggle for a long time, she went to the election to Chancellor in 1997, and she came second. Excellent. Yes,
She's been around as a
she's been around a long time. She just didn't drop in, so it's like.
Wait, she's working with a long time.
Okay, all right. So you see, so she worked there. She worked at the. So she's somebody who is a person of influence. Actually, she's rubbed shoulders with a lot of people. So she's widely known. But again, I think her position was kind of like cemented when the women actually voted.
But again, it brings me a question. I mean, this is normal because we living a conflict world. I mean, period. People are killing each other. I mean, using weapons. And at a certain time, there happened this woman coming and ruling the country. She was not right.
No, but don't forget. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf actually with all of the war and outbreaks and everything, initially, Ellen was a part of this whole team of people who had planned initially, okay, we need to liberate our country. But what happened, according to what she said, was she decided to get away from the poll when she saw that things were not going the way she had envisaged initially. So she took a back step. That is what I know, because that's what she said. So I want to believe, based on probably the position she took, must have, portrayed her as somebody of, a better perspective, higher expectation, somebody who had maybe good position, and she had good intention for the country. So it may have been like, okay, we need to deal with this one because we see that she's different from these other people. Besides that, she's a woman. But don't forget, in terms of her ruling, it was not government who was in charge of security. It's the UN. And even up to now, it's the United Nations peacekeeping force that is still providing security for the country. So it's not just Ellen as a woman sitting there. In fact, that actually kind of like, just reinforced that whole thing about we need to, consolidate the peace process because she's a woman, she could be vulnerable. In fact, during the 2006 when she took over, the very first independence celebration, July 26th, at the executive mansion, there was a explosion, fire outburst, something like that. And they had other heads of state with them. So you can imagine how embarrassing that is. So they had to vacate the place, running all over the place. I mean, of course, security were all over the place. But actually, it didn't really look good, the first just taking over and such a thing like that happened. Again, it was based on some shock in the circuit or whatever. So that was, but it was really, really, really not good at that time when I saw it. When she came back, her countenance was actually really just not good. But it is largely the UN peacekeeping mission that is in charge of security in the country, and not the government, because the government is actually building gradually with the army and with the police. But we're not there yet. Trust me, we're not there yet. Because most of our support is like, on these external structures. And with the UN even talking about pulling its drawdown phase, there's this apprehension among most of the citizens, kind of like, is the UN pulling out? Is the UN leaving? How is it going to be like? Because again, it's a matter of building trust within the police, which, trust me, a lot of people don't. I'm trying to trust the police, but I'm not so sure, because again, we should right well.
Is it a matter of ownership for the internal structure that they're not working on?
No, what the UN is doing, the UN is training these different structures with the build-up of the army. That's the American government is involved with the training of the army and everything to build it up to top.
There's a standing army.
Yes, yes, but it's not like to say you're ready to go, and when they say, okay, go and fight it, it's going not so. You'll still need some kind of like backup structure. So it's like a gradual process, but we have like up to now we have, I think, like about 3,000 of the our own army that has been built right now. And in fact, we have just in March the first batch of peacekeepers from the Liberian Armed Forces was deployed in Mali. Yeah, just the first. So it's a gradual process actually. But in terms of to say, okay, we can do it on our own. Yes, you can say we can, but again, it's a matter of trust. People need to believe and trust in the system, because the army under the Dole regime was also perceived as partaking in the war. Yes, that was like, this is the national army, should be protecting the citizens. But then members of the national army were killing the citizens. So it's a matter of trust again. The police, they were also used, as an armed structure, because when Charles Taylor came, he had a name, the SOD. That was the There was a nickname the guys gave it, son of the devil, something like that. But it was like the SOD as a police structure setup. But that was a police with like rifles and stuff. So it's like people still kind of thinking, is this a police that I can trust? Then on the other hand, you see this whole issue about the private thing. It's a gradual process, but it took that long to break the system. It's not going to fix it overnight. So it's a matter of, and this is part of the education. And this is part of the education aspect. This is part of the education. To educate our people, we need to build, this confidence again. To believe in our own police system and say, okay, we believe our people. But again, the message also goes out to the police. You have to make yourself, useful to your people. Because if you are, talking about accepting bribes, and you still see, cheating here and there, so it's going to take the people some time to actually say, I can trust the police. And that is one of the reasons why you would say people have a problem with mob violence. Because then, if you don't see the police doing anything, if there's a situation here and the police comes there, and if the police cannot solve the problem the way you think it should, and you discover that, okay, maybe something fell under the table, and because of that they have to, trash the case aside, automatically, next time, if somebody who was part of that team, if they are around when there's a violent situation, there's no way they're going to start going to go to the case. So again, like I said, it's a matter of trust. And that we are building gradually. But like 2015, when the UN actually begins its full drawdown, because when the UN mission got on the ground, they were with 15,000 boots on the ground. Now we have like half of that, like 7,000 plus. And that number is going to reduce gradually in 2015. But it doesn't mean that they're going to have, they're pulling out. It's just going to be a reduced team on the ground, because they believe that Liberia has like relative peace, and it doesn't need all of these soldiers that will say you need to go and deal with an arms incursion or something. So that's the reason why they kind of reducing that number. But again, they're not pulling off. And when you ask the question, it's like, no, we're not leaving, because we believe that we still need to build a system, especially the judiciary system. We need to build it. Rule of law, we need to build it. Trust me, there's serious cracks in the system. Okay, like UNMIL was created as a multi-dimensional operation in response to human rights and governance issues. And on August 12, 2013, the Security Council extended the mandate for UNMIL. Because usually, it is a peacekeeping force. It is not like a UN system that is on the ground like UNDP, UNICEF, UNFPA. No. It is a UN peacekeeping force that has a mandate. And that mandate has to be renewed every year. So, every September, the special representative comes up to New York. There's this huge debate about, do we need to extend their term? Are we satisfied with the work that is going on? So it's a big review of what the mission is doing. And once we see it, we think there's a need to work on X, Y, and Z. And so that gets extended. So that happens every year. Because missions have an endpoint, some of them have been there for the longest, like the one in the TRC, but again, this is Jack Walkline, the guy who was the head of mission. They used to refer to him as the governor. It's a retired U.S. diplomat. And this is the force commander, General Daniel Oponde. He comes from Kenya. He's from Kenya. These are some Liberian journalists. This is the guy I know. This is a police who works with me also. This guy, he's one of the commanders of the Lerd forces, one of those warring factions that was actually fighting and shelling indiscriminately. They were the ones, they claiming that they were the ones who drove Charles Taylor out of Liberia. So he's one of the commanders that call him Florida. I'm not so sure whether he's still alive. Something came up, I'm not so sure if he's still alive. But I remember the force commander jokingly. And that day I traveled with the force commander from Monrovia throughout to the east, close to the border. And this was a period where there are people fighting. They got fighters there, They are armed. These guys have not been disarmed. And as a reporter, you travel with the force commander, a man who's kind of like fearless. He's been in this kind of terrain. It's used to him. It's normal for him. Imagine as a journalist going in this kind of terrain and you're thinking, wow, I don't have any insurance. I don't have anything. If something happens, well, that's the end of it. And I remember we went to one of the provincial capitals in Banga, where I come from. And the guys just grew wild. They were all over the place, some of them dragging their guns on the football. And like, I was like, God, what fucking. And I was so scared. But this guy, I just want to say, hey, guys, you know, that's not what you're going to do. You know, that's not what you're going to do. So the sooner you can stop, the better it's going to be for us. And we were going with a whole convoy of the Pakistanis, huge group, the Nigerians, you know, those are the largest military countries. They were all there. We had the Swedes, just the police there now, had the Irish at the time. So, but they were not like deployed outline, in the outline areas that were because we were like, okay, these guys are the careless ones. So they had, for everywhere we went, we removed, like, even who were posted there, and then they deployed Bangladeshis there. You go this way, they deployed Pakistanis. So that is how it was. My first time to see it actually happen, and trust me, I didn't eat until we got back. Because it just kept ringing in my mind. I said, what would have happened? Because these are guys, they are high on crack, and you can see it. Some of them, they haven't even showered for months. So they don't have to come closer to you for you to smell it. You see them, you know. The mission's mandate, like it was that supporting the ceasefire, observing disengagement of armed forces, protecting civilians, promoting human rights, and that is something they believe they still need to do. Supporting reform of the military and the police, promoting the peace process, including the national elections. So you will see that the very first elections with 2005 that brought Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, that was something that was spearheaded by the international community, the United Nations, United States, all of the different major power players. They were a part of that to make sure, because like we were not in a position to host an election itself. It was the second that Liberia actually played a frontline role, but again with support from the UN and the other partners. The troop size that I was talking about right now is 7,000 plus. The police is got like 1,000. That is with the foreign troops now, not local. Local and international personnel, like civilians, you have like 1,400. Then it comes to UNMIL radio, like 1.5. We cover the entire country, and that is the logo there. Basically, disseminate information in support of the government's efforts leading to recovery and development. And actually, radio was established primarily to support the work of government. It's not that you're sounding as a voice for government, but you just bring visibility to what government is doing to change, you know, the way things are. The gloomy picture, you know, bring in hope to the people. So basically, the function of the UNMIL radio is to make sure we are there to support and bring forth and encourage development among them. So you want to talk about the issues of violence that I was saying. You have to resort to that because that's not the way. So it's a lot of education. And the one thing about peace and reconciliation, because some of the people feel that the manner in which the TRC system was handled, it didn't really provide a lot of room wherein people can actually reconcile it themselves. Okay, this is what we need to do as a nation. There were recommendations there, actually eventually that got kind of trashed along the way. But in terms of, this is a national plan of action when it comes to reconciliation. People had not seen much of that. It was just in recent times when the president appointed her co-Nobel laureate, to head that. But at some point in time, she relinquished that for different reasons. So now, the other political rival, George Weah, was the one who was given that opportunity to do so. For most people among Liberians, like I said, encourage civil society as a driving force for development, because civil society actually has a force. We believe that civil society can do more. So it's encouraging all of these engagements to ensure that at least Liberians have a semblance of hope first for themselves. To say the situation is not entirely doomed as it seems. Because trust me, it was worse than that. And initially, earlier, my boy was asking me to see that peace consolidation doesn't mean that you have peace. I will believe we have peace. It may be fragile. It can crumble. You never tell. Because not everybody is the same. But the message is, we've had enough, and no more of that, because nobody wants to run away from them. I mean, I ran too much one time, so I'm not going to start running away. So in terms of the programming that we have like different programs using current affairs. One of the flagship programs that is that I produced. Right now they have others doing that. It's a current affairs program. Right now, only 8 tonight. Then you have programs from people reconciliation. You have programs from agriculture, because we have this huge vast land. And sadly, we just can't feed ourselves. Yeah. So I don't know why we still own like 40% of the tropical rainforest. Yes, it was African region. But we still cannot provide food for ourselves. So it's like trying to talk to people in agriculture how to go back. One of the concerns right now is engaging in lowland farming. So part of that education is telling people you can harvest more than one time if you, unlike you farming upland, which is like you got to plant here and then you have to go on the other side and clear it again. It's usually like subsistence farming. So you just farm here, you clear the forest, you feed, you farm whatever you produce. There's not much that you can sell out there, except maybe to buy stuff for yourself and feed your family. And sometimes, more often than not, you check that even before it gets to the next farming season, most of these farmers don't even have it. So it's more education than that, it's education and empowerment. Looking at the issue of health, one of that happens to be maternal mortality, and our rate happens to be the highest in sub-Saharan Africa, because from 2007, that was discovered that we had like 994 deaths to every 100,000 lives, and that was really, really scary. But like as of last year, the WHO came up with a projection that there was a slight drop. So from 994 to 770, obviously just a little drop in the bucket. Saying that maternal mortality was kind of changing a little bit, but that is still really not good. For under 5, the system has improved for under 5. But for newborn, maternal, that's we still have a problem. Overall development, part of the goal, and then the that process that I was telling you for 2015.
What is the growth rate of the population?
Growth rate in terms of
Growth rate of population.
Growth rate is what
Like
how
I
many
said,
people do they have usually 2 kids or 6 kids or
because so even because, like I said, 2008 was the first time we had our census putting the population at 3.5. So to tell you, to get the statistics about this member of this house who had 2 kids and probably they will get 1 tomorrow. No.
How many people?
Around 250,000. Yeah. You want to move that?
No, I understand.
Oh, because of your population size, so you think 250,000 is not enough. Between 250,000 to 300,000. No, we are just 3.5. Even just recently we got 3.5. You are like, I don't know, 10, 11, how many? Can you imagine? Because that's for you, it's just nothing.
But I want to ask you, I mean, like Firestone, I heard Firestone on like a farm.
Not necessarily in terms of the space they occupy. If you say the space they occupy, fine.
Yeah,
But
because
it's not like,
they get all the money. You know?
oh yeah, it's a multilateral corporation, and by extension, an American company. So what else can I say?
So I'm saying, although you've got 40% of the product in West Africa, you don't own it.
No. In fact, that one with Firestone is not even part of the 40% I'm talking about. The one with Firestone. It's not part of the equation that in this the forest you get coming in. The guys have their rubber, so what are you going to do? Take it from there? No.
No, but this question, I mean, brought me the question. I was attempting to go back. Why, Liberian people made what was the main reason why people in Nigeria?
They were fighting for several reasons. But the ones that I can candidly remember, one nepotism. Call that
Exclusion.
exclusion. If a president comes, as American Liberians rule it, African Americans. So obviously, who do you think is going to be at the Ministry of Finance? Is it going to be an indigenous person? I'm sorry. It's going to be either a Chomber or it's going to be a Peabody or somebody. So it's not going to be an indigenous person. So they felt marginalized, ostracized, all of the negative things you can think about. We are not ably represented, and we are the largest here. These people are just a handful. But they got so much power. And where do you think the power is? You know? So that's the thing. So it's like, it's kind of like, you think it's a small group, but it has so much money. You and I know better than that.
But so you think that they not intermarry?
I'm just saying, they have intermarriages. And probably that might have shifted, but it's just a little tiny, not even 1%. To say, oh yes, because this one is married to an indigenous person, this indigenous person will be appointed to this position. If you find the other on the flip side, is actually the American Liberians kind of like trying to marry to the natives. And they take on a native name because they want to identify with the native people. And for me, it's just politics. For me, it's just politics. It's not like the same idea. Oh yeah, because then again, if you see, the argument is, if you see somebody saying here, like for example, there's a lady who was at the mayor for the state of Monrovia for I don't know how long, over a decade. She is an American Liberian, married to a native Liberian. Okay, and the only player I saw was during the Ellen Johnson's early regime. He worked directly with the president. That's one thing I saw. Again, because of the power dynamics and all that, all the different shifts to make it look like, okay, yes, things are improving. But that percentage is very, very small. They're doing it, but in terms of what is expanding our scope to incorporate other people, trust me, the natives still feel like underrepresented. They're kind of still saying we need our voices because we still think that this whole American Liberian thing still playing out.
But personally, like the whole fight is for the same reason all over the world: power and resources, power and money.
No, yeah, I think that
Because they were like, okay, all of these things, and trust me, my country is rich, and I don't have to
Can you tell me something about this role of civil society? Do you have a vibrant dynamic of civil society which says this is the wrong way of voicing your concern? Let's energize these voices and develop a collective voice, collective wisdom, and put up your pressure at some point instead of setting up the vehicles.
Civil society does that. Actually, before the civil society was kind of like fairly weak. But now I think we're getting a stronger civil society. Sadly, one of those champions just passed natural. One of those real, strong voices that speak out to issues. For example, talking about prudence in terms of how finances are being controlled from the perspective of political parties and even central administration. So it's been a matter of, every year there is this annual budget that is designed. And you see this percentage goes to agriculture, this one goes to health, this one goes to finance. this one goes to one of the town or whatever. And with all of these structures, when these are released, people want to find out. So civil society has actually taken a giant step to keep track of how government institutions are actually follow up with implementation of the budget. You said you needed maybe 200,000 for X, Y, and Z. Have to be able. So they follow up with these different institutions, and we have.
Do they have input in formulating budgets? Do they have they have access to access in the
civil society?
Yeah.
Not entirely, because don't forget the budget is prepared, like institutions, like the ministries, they prepare their budget based on the needs. So they send these. So listen.
Wait. Create demands. Yeah.
So when they collect, when they come up with their budget, they submit the budget to Parliament. And when they submit the budget to Parliament, there is a budget hearing process. And that's when civil society speaks out. Because then civil society comes there to listen to what all these different institutions are saying. Oh, this is what we got, this is what we got. And when they're done, civil society asks the question, how about this? How about that? So those questions that are left out from the institutions, civil society raises it. And I am really happy that they have this system about the open budget hearing. People go there, they listen. Whatever they don't like, they will ask questions. And I think that is helping to actually improve the process. But when it comes to the implementation of the budget, as to whether you're sitting there and what is happening. Oh,
you got one question. Who is controlling your diamond field? You have diamonds? You see?
We got more diamonds than you do. It's the Kimberley process. We subscribe to the Kimberley process. And they have these diamond houses that are there when you go there, they got the agents out and the brokers, blah, blah, blah. When they go out there, they find a diamond, they take it to the government diamond house, the regional diamond house within that area. And then they check it and make sure, okay, this is what it is. So every diamond leaving out of the country is certified. And they have a standing relationship with the neighboring countries like Guinea, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, and beyond. If there's any diamond that is not certified from Liberia coming to these different areas, they should be able to notify that.
The government is controlling you.
The government, along with the Kimberley process, is actually like where your diamonds have to be certified, and that was part of the arrangement of this whole recovery process, because it was like diamonds for country. So now they're saying instead of diamonds for country, one diamond for development. So you have to certify the diamonds that are leaving your country. So to say yes, because the situation was chopped up, was sending out diamonds everywhere to get guts. Other forces as well were doing the same. So now it's maintaining a check and balance on the system. Yeah. Okay, interagency collaboration, we promote campaigns as radio, right? Because there's a law on rape. The only sad part is that I personally was kind of like pushing up for the death penalty, but they didn't do that because Parliament was kind of controversial and saying, oh, no, we can't take that because it has like the death penalty and stuff. In the rape case, it's not going over well. So there's a rape law for people, perpetrators will go to jail for life. They have a campaign on Fistula where women are repaired, teenage pregnancy, with one of the highest again, maternal health.
Teenage pregnancies out of wedlock or within the wedlock?
Teenage pregnancy?
Yeah.
Oh, girls get pregnant. Sexual and gender-based violence, not all of them, like, some of them, yeah, wedlock, other, more violence than other ones. Okay, there's an interview with the president. That's me, the corner. My other colleague is there. This one is just Victoria. I'm just trying to zero in on that. And then we have World Radio Day on February 13th. And that is the sign you see there on the Radio Celebrate. Here we are, like, brought together different communication experts just to discuss how well is radio progressing in terms of promoting peace, reconciliation, and different aspects of development. Then, of course, that's a picture there. That's also at least I'm a police from radio. That's me. That's another police. These are the other people. Just having fun after talking a lot. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question about, the outcome is kind of conflicting. How people are educated and how, like,
Yeah,
No,
go ahead.